Hello and welcome to another episode of PsycKicks. My name is Liv and this is the podcast where we talk about all things spiritual, metaphysical, paranormal, and in between. Because as a psychic medium and admirer of all things of such nature, I don't know, it's what we talk about in this podcast. Today, we're going to be sharing some listener stories.
No.
And I'm excited about it. I figure Happy New Year and all that jazz, and what better way to celebrate the new year than with all of you who support the podcast through your listener stories. I went pretty deep into the archives of the listener stories that we have to find these, and there is no theme. I just looked and clicked on ones that seemed like the titles were interesting enough. And we went from there. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I will be sharing your listener stories and giving any sort of commentary and or spiritual psychic insight that I can provide to you. Some of them I feel like I have intuitive understanding of. Other ones, they really just kind of surprised me. And I'm not going to lie about it. I will let you know when I was like, that story took a turn I was not expecting. And we'll go from there. Before we get into the listener stories, I haven't talked about a life update in a while, so I'm going to share that with you. If you don't want to know more about me on a personal level, not necessarily as like a medium or a professional of someone in the spiritual community. Someone used the word spiritual practitioner the other day. I don't know how I feel about those words, but I feel like they could be applicable to me. But I'm not going to talk about myself really in that way in the life update. And if that's not what you want, then go down to the timestamp that will be listed in the description below if you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel or just in the show notes on whatever podcast listening platform you're listening to, and click past it. I'm not offended. It's okay. Some people don't want to listen to other people talk about random things, and then some people do. If you do, this is for you. But without further ado, this is my life update. So, I think I said doo-doo a lot of times before I decided to talk about myself. What is something that is funny? I don't know how we did my Christmas and my New Year's did not happen how I thought it was going to. I feel like I should share that with people because I secretly love Christmas. It's not a secret anymore because I'm telling you, I'm just a very like down low Christmas fanatic. I don't think fanatic is the right word. I was talking with my friend for weeks about how I wanted to decorate my house for Christmas this year because now I'm a mom and I feel like, my mom was a single mom. My brother and I, we had divorced parents. So like the school system, the public school system is what gave us our like yearly doses of like seasonal holidays, things like that. And just feeling like the seasons change and like embracing them. Like no one can ever tell me that spring isn't associated with like the color green or like pinks and purples. No one can tell me that winter is not associated with like blue and white. And no one can tell me that like summer is not associated with like oranges and reds and yellows, because every day or every year in elementary school, when the calendars would change, they always had like color coordinated things for the seasons and the holidays and stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like now that I'm a mom and my son is just over 1, I feel like I have to like somehow bring the Christmasness into the house or like the holidays and things. And my husband's 100% for it. He loves Halloween. That's his favorite. And then he also likes Christmas too. So we watched like Harry Potter movies, which for me, I don't know about you guys that had like cable or not. Remember when ABC Family was ABC Family and not Freeform? Haven't had cable in years, but I remember watching like the OG Grinch Christmas special where everyone's like cartoony and like colorized, and like the old Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and then most specifically Harry Potter. I don't know why, but the only time I want to watch Harry Potter is around the Christmas seasons, because that's when ABC Family would have all of their Christmas like montages, and one of those was Harry Potter. I don't care for watching it when it's like spooky season, as everyone calls it. I like me some Christmas Harry Potter. But anyways, the Christmas season did not happen how I thought it was going to be. We had plans. My husband got stressed out. All of the plans got canceled. And now here we are. So I thought I was going to decorate my house, and I just didn't have the, I don't know, energy, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially to do so. So I was talking to my friend about it. She was telling me about how she was going to, or she showed me pictures of her lovely house she decided to do like, it's not necessarily Candyland, but more like pinks and greens and yellows and purples and like cute little iridescent and almost like crystally looking ornaments in her house. And it was so freaking cute. I was like, man, I wish I could do things like that. So I'm currently taking applications or requests, or not even requests, help. I'm taking help for ideas on how I should decorate my house next year for Christmas. Just little things here or there. My sister-in-law did come over, and we ended up making a Christmas tree out of like poster board and paper and things. And Oak had fun with that. We, as fast as we put it up, he mostly was just like putting glue on his hands and sticking things to himself. But as fast as we put the tree up, made out of poster board and construction paper, Oak took it down, or tried to, very fast as well. So I don't know. That was kind of my holiday season. But the funniest thing I wanted to tell you guys about the other day was my husband and I have been trying to have date nights, and we had our very first date night since our son has been born 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And on our way home, we went to this ramen place that's near us that's like Naruto themed, and everything has like One Piece, Demon Slayer, Naruto, and then, what's the other one? Jujutsu Kaisen themed, and what's his name? Not Todoroki, My Hero Academia. So they have like screens playing in this little tiny room where each screen has like one show going on everything. And then you can get your ramen and your bubble tea and stuff like that. And it was fantastic. But on the way home, Brad kept telling me that I am his twin. Mind you, my husband listens to rap music, and he's also out like in the outside world because he works with other people that are like in their teens to 20s and things like that, and he gets all the lingo from the younger kids, you know what I'm saying? So he kept referring to me as his twin. Well, he was referring to our son Oak as his twin too, and I'm like, okay, well, he is your twin because he's your baby. But when he was telling me that, I was like, I'm lost. Can you explain this to me? He goes, well, when he's like, how you call people and like you talk about things called like twin flames and like soulmates and stuff. He's like, that's what your twin means. It's they're your twin flame. They're your soulmate. They're your twin, quote unquote. And I was like, oh, okay. This is the new lingo that you're learning from the whippersnappers. Hey. And he's like, yeah, you're my twin. And then the funniest thing that he said to me was, my husband is a Gemini, right? And he's been embracing his spirituality-ish type thing now after freaking almost 5 years of me doing this. And this mofo has the audacity to make the joke of, he goes, but I'm my own twin, And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm a Gemini. I got like the yin and the yang, the good twin and the bad twin. You want to know which twin you're working with today? He's like, I am my own twin. He's like, all you other astrological people have to work even harder because you ain't your own twin. I'm my own twin. He's like, only the Geminis will know. And I was like, who are you right now? So I just wanted to tell you that my husband made a spiritual funny, and anyone who's a Gemini right now, you are your twin. What do you think about that? You'd be walking down the streets being like, I am my twin. It was so funny. He was just like, you're a Leo. You would know nothing about being no twin. And I was like, okay, you need to calm down. That ramen is hitting you way too hard, my dude. So that's my life update. I can only be someone's twin. I cannot be my own twin. And because I cannot be my own twin, because I'm not a Gemini like my husband, therefore I am not as cool. Those are the things I learned in the new year. I will never be as cool as my husband. So thank you for joining me on my life update. If you guys have funny, like astrological jokes or puns, please put them in the comments below if you're listening on the YouTube channel, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think you can leave comments now on Spotify, but I know on Apple Podcasts you can leave reviews. Leave a freaking astrological funny in the comments. I'll try and look at them and read them in the next podcast. But when he made that joke, I was like, what? It's funny because it's true. You do listen to the things that I say. Anyways, let's get into this month's listener stories. So I think we've read a listener story from Kick before, only because I know that your email name is different from the name that you say to put on the podcast, Kick. But I also think that the reason you put Kick is because you are a PsycKick, and I adore it. Whether that's true or not, I will always remember your name. And I read your story before I read the name, and I was like, oh, Kick sent in a story before. So if you're listening to this, yo, what's up, girl? Anyways, Kick's title of their story is Eeeeviiill. I love the way Kick talks too, so buckle up. The way that she tells stories is fabulous. Kick says, Christmas holiday period, circa 1983. I'm traveling in Western Canada, arriving at a lakeside home where my friend's friend is holding a holiday party. Everything's festive, the place is heaving with guests, none of whom I know. At one point, I'm surrounded by a small group of people. One woman in particular moves in close for a chat. She's rather short, compactly built, and elderly. Her most distinguishing feature? Her hooded eyes. As we converse, I'm suddenly overcome by the sound of an overpowering chorus inside my head. Only I can hear them. And the only word they say distinctly is in the story title I've given you. Eeeeviiill! Overcome, my eyes widen, and I say absolutely bubkiss to anyone about what just happened. Instead, I search out the most innocent person at the gathering, a little girl about 8 or 9 playing a board game, I forget which one, on the floor. I join her and refuse to look up until someone comes over to me, letting me know it's time to go. I look up, the partygoers have vanished, and we are among the last to leave. And boy, am I relieved! Dear Metas, as I'm female and was in my late 20s, what the hell happened to me at that party that required my guides to make their presence known so audibly? Much love, Kick. I really hope I read that, Kick, how you wanted to say it, because anytime I read one of your stories, that is how I read it, and I'm trying to embody all things that is Kick, because I love the way that you write things. So anyways, to answer your question, what the heck required your guides to make their presence known so audibly? I don't know. I feel like I would assume that this person was probably not cool. Oh, okay. So I don't know. Sometimes when I read your stories, I have things that pop into my head, but then when I am audibly talking about them to all of you, as I am right now, more things sort of come in. There's a word for it. It's like audible processing of things instead of just sometimes you have a problem and the problem keeps bothering you and you keep going over and over and over it in your head, and then eventually you share your problem with someone, and then it seems like the answer just smacks you right in the face, or more information that you didn't think that you could understand comes to light when you verbalize it to someone else or write it down, whatever. It's moving information in a different media. That's kind of sometimes what happens when I read your listener stories on the podcast versus just picking them out. So my original thing that I was going to say to you, Kick, is it's your spirit guides. I don't know necessarily specifically what about the woman is so bad or was so bad, but they obviously felt the need to let you know. Hence why you just found an innocent girl to play a board game with, which if I was the girl at the party with a board game, I would be so happy that you sat down to play with me, because no one else would probably want to play a board game with me. But I don't know. Maybe it was just this woman had evil intentions. That's more so what I was going to say. However, I don't know what the intentions were. They just were probably bad. Hence why your guides made it known to you about how she wasn't very cool. But again, as I'm saying this, there's a man, I feel who could be in spirit on my right hand side. He has tanner skin. I would say he's might still be white, if not like Italian, maybe ish, possibly. Because like I'm like Irish white, but then there's also like Italian, like Mediterranean ish as well. So he might be Italian or somewhere from over there. How do I explain what he looks like? He looks like the original head chef from Ratatouille, which is, I guess his character's name is Chef Skinner. So if you want to pause the podcast and look up what Chef Skinner looks like, this is what the man in spirit kind of looks like to me, although not that short. He's like a normal, maybe like 5'6", 5'8" in height-ish, maybe more like 5'6". He's a little bit shorter, but he's wearing like a nice long tan overcoat. He's wearing glasses. His hair is brown, like the character from Ratatouille. And he has, did I say that he was wearing glasses? I'm not sure. But he seems very nice. He seems like he has a bit of a sense of humor to himself. He would be someone that maybe would go to like country clubs or enjoy parties with other people. I don't know if he's someone that is associated to you, Kit, or if he's associated to the party or the woman who was evil. But he makes me feel like he's associated to the situation somehow, but he's like laughing. So I don't know if you will hear this, Kit. I'll see if I have your email to let you know that I shared this story with you. Some of the stories were added much like longer ago and the emails weren't kept. But if I do have that information, I'll let you know that I shared your story, and then you can tell me who you might think this person is, or if you have no idea who this person is, because I could also be entirely wrong. That's kind of how mediumship works. But I feel like he might have facilitated the sound of evil coming into your head because maybe he knew the woman. I don't know if he was married to her or knew her as a house guest. I'm not sure, but he makes me feel like he's laughing a little bit in a sort of mischievous way. Like he would be someone that might pull pranks on people a little bit. And I think he might be related to the situation somehow. But that is my answer for you. Either way, you got the message loud and clear, literally and figuratively. And I would have played a board game on the floor with someone else as well to get away from the situation. So moving on. Our next story is by Taron, and Taron's story is titled Great Grandfather's Spirit Wakes Me Up. Taron says, "Hey, I'm a big fan of your work. I love how accurate your readings of energy are, and I love how easily you can communicate with spirit. I have a rather cool story to share, so I thought I'd share it with you guys, seeing as I can. So thank you for that opportunity." You're welcome, Taron. I'm excited to read your story. Taron says, "When I was around 10 or 11, I spent the weekend at my grand's apartment. My grandmother was highly intuitive and saw spirits, but more so in her dreams. She developed a fear of spirit because whenever she'd have dreams about them, it used to scare her. So she developed a habit of sleeping with her Bible next to her and at her door. She also always covered her eyes slightly with her duvet so she couldn't see anything. LOL. Aw, that makes me a little sad. I totally understand where your grandma's coming from, though, Taron, because I don't like physically seeing things. It freaks me out. I don't like physically experiencing spiritual things in and of itself. If I cannot have that happen, it's great." Continuing on with Taron's story, Taron says, "My grandfather passed away, my great-grandfather, unfortunately through suicide, as he suffered from emphysema and he didn't have much money left. He was a very wise, hard-working man, and my father loved him very much. However, his relationship with my gran was a bit strained as he was very stubborn and strict with her. Anyways, back to the evening with my gran. I was busy sleeping in the middle of the bed with my gran on my right and my girl cousin on my left. Suddenly, I sat straight up. It was as though my physical body didn't intend to do it. I looked at the door, and next to it stood my great-grandfather, as solid as a human being, standing there and talking to me. He spoke to me in my mind, but it sounded like how we would talk as humans. This also means that neither my gran nor my cousin could hear him. His words to me were, 'Lift the duvet from your gran's face.' I answered him normally, not in my mind, and I said, 'Yes, Grandpa,' and I just fell back to sleep. I didn't even have the energy to lift the duvet from my gran's eyes. As I fell back into bed, my gran actually woke up to me talking and asked me who I was talking to, so I told her that it was her father. I bet she was really scared, but we spoke about it in the next day. I just thought I'd share this because I feel there were so many metaphysical factors here at play. My brainwave state, maybe using my energy a little to manifest, the telepathy, etc. I'm still a bit scared to see spirit, although I know I need to not expect the worst. I've done a little bit of homework that Jamie Butler, a medium, speaks of in some of her videos of how to see energy, and I've seen a being by resting my eye muscles slightly. It's quite cool. Anyways, I love your content. Please keep doing what you're doing. Light and love, Taron. Hug, kiss, kiss, hug. Aw, Taron, thank you. I appreciate your story. So I am not here to discount the fact that you perceived your grandfather's soul that evening when you were sleeping over at your grand's house. It does make me sad that your gran has, according to what you say, like mediumship capabilities, but is scared of them. I totally, it makes me sad, but I totally understand because I don't like perceiving things physically either. It is not okay. And I wish that I wish more people would tell others that they don't have to embrace their psychic abilities or their mediumship capabilities if they don't want to. Like I've had so many people reach out to me and say, oh, I had this medium or this psychic tell me that I have capabilities and I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do that. And I'm just like, listen, if that's not something you want to do, then don't do it. You are the one that decides if you have mediumship or psychic abilities and to what extent. That is up to you to figure out and up to you to either do something about or not do something about. Like you don't have to have a podcast or do readings or anything with your abilities because your abilities will help people in and of their own ways, however you choose to live your life or use or not use those abilities. But it's also important to understand that if you choose to embrace those abilities, that you have the ability to choose how they affect you. Does that make sense? To a certain extent. Like if you don't want to see people, you can tell people, I don't want to see you because you are divinely loved and protected because you matter, and your spirit guides and spirit itself are going to convey information to you in a way that is following the rules that you set forth. So I don't know. If you might be feeling the same way as Taron's gran about things that you're experiencing in your life because of innate psychic or mediumship abilities, just always remember, like, sit down with yourself, and whether you feel that you perceive your spirit guides in a more physical way or not, they're always there. So like, don't get stuck on the fact of like, I need to know that I'm communicating with my spirit guides. You always are. But sit down and be like, this is how I want to receive information. This is what I'm comfortable with. This is what I'm not comfortable with. If you don't want to see people, tell them that you don't want to. I don't see people physically. I only see them in my mind. So if I see like a shadow or something like that, that's usually more so like psychic capabilities, I would say, than mediumship, because I'm perceiving the energy of the metaphysical that's happening more so than interpreting it or channeling it as a medium. Maybe we could do a podcast on the difference between that, or how to sort of analyze energy in a different way. Anyways, so Taron, I do think that you saw your grandfather, but I don't think I can talk to his soul because it's not something that I think he would want to step forward and talk to, or at least have me talk to about on a podcast. Because I was asking myself, like, why would he ask you to remove the cover from your grand's eyes? Like, I'm sure it's a very intimate thing in which he was trying to help your gran through something, i.e. something. I don't know what that is. It must be something with their relationship, maybe. Maybe she'd already been having dreams or premonitions about him. And by her physically seeing him as a soul, I don't know how that would help the situation, because you tell me that it scared her in the first place that she would see people. But like, I don't know. I think when you heard his voice in your mind, that is what I would call, just for people that are listening, that is clairaudience. That is you receiving psychic or medium information or channeling spiritual energy in a audible way. You can hear things clairaudiently either outside of your head, which is like if you're watching like the ghost investigation videos and something like goes bump in the night because a spirit moves it or sets off an EMF reader or like a music box or something like that, that would be clairaudience in my book, but that's physical clairaudience. But you can also have clairaudience in your head, in which you hear things in your voice, someone else's voice, or like as if like a song was playing. Does that make sense? I guess that would still be someone else's voice. But those are all clairaudience. So that's a psychic ability, and that's going to be unique to you, Taron. Some people might not experience clairaudience that way. I was actually talking to another friend a couple days ago, and they were talking about land their family lives on. They have Native American relatives, and the land that they live on was also a part of a land from relatives. Anyways, I got like a Cherokee word pop into my head and it wasn't, I think it was in my voice. It wasn't in someone else's voice, but when I typed in what it sounded like to me, it ended up being the word for like great spirit. And I just thought that was interesting. So that is a form of clairaudience. And I guess telepathy is a way that you could describe it. But I would say it would be more clairaudience than telepathy. Because, I mean, I guess telepathy is a form of clairaudience too, whether you're having a telepathic thought shared with an animal, a living person. And when I say an animal, I mean like a living animal, a living person, and or a spirit. So that's all interesting. But I guess I wanted to say, Taron, I did ask for your great-grandfather to maybe explain the meaning or why that encounter happened, but I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately. So I hope I was able to at least give you something that helped you to learn a little bit, but I don't think his soul is going to step forward to talk about those things because they don't have to if they don't want to. All right, Taron, thanks so much for sending in your story. We are moving on to the next one. Our next story was sent in by Taru, and Taru's story is titled Ghost or a Dream. Taru says, I had lived in my family home for years before this happened, and this house, to my knowledge, was an old nursing home or something along those lines before we moved in. One night, I woke up and I saw a tall man standing at the end of my bed. At the time, I could picture him very vividly, but now my memory of him is not that great anymore. All I remember of him was that he was tall and probably wore Victorian-era clothes. From the clothing, I could tell that he was working class. He might have had brown hair, but I'm not sure about that. I don't recall any facial hair, and he was pretty young, maybe in his 20s. When I saw him, I surprisingly stayed calm and didn't freak out like I thought I would. I pretty quickly fell back asleep, and in the morning, I was not sure if it was real or if it was a dream. And that is still a mystery to me to this day. That is the only experience I've personally had with ghosts if it was not just a dream. Sometimes I wonder who that man is and what his life was like. And of course, I still wonder, why was he watching me? You know what, Taru? I'm going to tell you. Why was he watching you and who might he have been? So I think who he might have been. See, I also saw a man too who seemed to have been in like more of a Victorian era outfit with brown hair. Also in his, I would say like late teens, early 20s to like maybe 18 to like 23 maybe. Like tall and thin, a little slouchy, and I don't know. When I read your story, the soul of this man stepped forward, presumably, allegedly. I don't know if we'll never really know. And I felt like he was someone, he tells me that he was at your house as like a chimney sweeper. But when I asked him if he actually was a chimney sweep, that was the thing that confused me because he felt like he was at your house to clean chimneys. So I don't know if your house had chimneys in it, but he talked about how he wasn't just a chimney sweep. He did odd jobs. He was like a handyman. That was what he did when he was alive. And I think the way he explains, like the way I see the room when I see him is like there's a hallway And if you were to walk in the room where he's standing, your bed would be right in front of the door, and behind you there would be a wall, and then to the left and the right there would be windows. But he said at some point in time there may have been a chimney in your room when he was alive, type thing, of like when the building was there before or something. I'm not sure. He might have even been in like the 1920s, because the way I see him dressed is like one of the Newsies. You ever seen the play The Newsies? Like the boys that are the chimney sweeps, and they have the silly, like, they're not silly hats, but they're like the newsy boy hats, that type of thing. So it might not have been Victorian era. It could have been even like, I mean, that would be like the turn of the century, like 1900s to early 1920s at the most. It's so hard to tell, because I want to say like 1890s to 1920s might have been like when he might have been 20 in like the 1920s. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, he says that he was a handyman. So I feel like the house that you used to live in may have been somewhere that he was a handyman for, or was called in to do chimney sweeping. But the thing that, like, why was he staring at you type of thing? Because the building, I feel like there might have been a chimney where your bed used to be up against the wall at one point in time. Because I know chimneys, obviously, like most modern houses don't have fireplaces anymore because we don't use fireplaces in the way that we used to. Now everyone has like heaters, HVAC systems and things like that. But I feel like your room used to have a chimney or a fireplace in it, hence why he was going in there. Now, as to why he was staring at you, my guess, see, this is the thing that like that boggles my mind, and I can't necessarily understand it from a more scientific standpoint, which is why it bothers me. But when I go to haunted locations, which is always just an interesting thing. Like, for example, I like to go to the cemetery with my son, because when you have a toddler, what is the best place, or where could one of the best places be to take a toddler? A cemetery, at least in my mind. Like some people are like, I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to go to the mall. If you go to the park or if you go to the mall, there are always going to be other people and things that could run over your toddler or that they could fall down on, all of these things. At a cemetery, 9 times out of 10, no one's at a cemetery. There might be one other person visiting someone all the way on the other side of the cemetery, but there is literally no one there. And toddlers just want to roam. They want to fuck around and find out and just toddle everywhere. So to let them toddle, best place, cemeteries. No one's there. It's safe. They can run around. They can touch things. They can jump in puddles. There could be like little hills they could walk up and down. There's mausoleum stairs that they can climb on and shake their butts, whatever. Perfect place. But when I go to the cemetery, sometimes I will perceive things that are just like happening transiently. And when I see things that are happening transiently, there's one of two ways in which they can be manifesting spiritually or paranormally. One is that the energy or soul of those people are choosing to be there in this time, in this present place, even though they're in heaven or spirit. They're choosing to sort of put their energy into our dimension of existence in order to interact with it in a different, more physical, energetic way. Or there's like actual like timelines, you know, like if you were to go super, super far out in space, if that makes sense, you could, based on the way light travels, the speed of light, if you get X away from or in a distance away from Earth and you look at Earth through a big old telescope, you would be able to see like the dinosaurs, the Victorian era, whatever it is, because the way light travels. So if you get far enough away and then look at Earth, you'll see what is happening in relations to distance and time away from Earth. So if you're X distance away, you'll see X time happening at Earth because it takes that long for the light to travel out into space. So as a medium, I don't know how this is possible, but there's like the energetic imprint of energy. So it's like you can see or sometimes perceive timelines that are happening spiritually, paranormally, whatever you want to call it, that aren't on the same timeline that you're in now. So they're layered like cakes, like an onion, you know, timelines are like an ogre, whatever you want to call it. So I think this, like, I feel like he was existing, possibly this Victorian man, Taru, on a certain timeline, but it's almost like his consciousness and his energy of the timeline in which he existed at, which coincides with the time frame of your house, but in the past, sort of like meshed together. So when you saw him, he saw you, but I don't think that he necessarily, I don't know, I feel like that's wrong. That's just one of my hypotheses, is that his timeline of when he lived, right, was taking place when you were sleeping, because they're all just like energetically layered, right? But when his energy perceived yours, they almost got like too close together, hence why it looked like he was staring at you. I don't know. I feel like if I'm perceiving him, though, he's shaking his head and saying no, but I'm not getting an answer as to why he was staring at you. Maybe he does just haunt the building and he was staring at you. Like, what are you doing in my room? Maybe he used to be in that room at one point in time. I feel like maybe that might be a closer answer. Perhaps this person used to be in the house that you lived in at some point in time, hence why he was staring at you like that. That's so odd. I feel like that one might be more close to the answer. I hope that answers your question. You know, sometimes when souls just walk into a room and they're not expecting you to be there, they'll just look at you funny. Why not? When did that happen? Amanda and I, when we were in Louisiana, she's going to be releasing more videos of our escapades, I would say, in Louisiana. There was one hotel that we stayed in. I don't remember which one it was. We stayed in so many different hotels. It was like one hotel every day. But it was an older hotel that used to be like a bank, a boarding house, a red light district area, if you will. And when we walked in the room, there was this really chubby fat man sitting in this chair that was positioned in between these two little like walls that looked out to a window. And I just remember him like looking at us with his legs crossed and his hand like up under like leaning on the edge of the chair, and he very much like saw us, and I remember making eye contact with him a little bit, and I was like, interesting, hello, how do you do? And then he just was gone. So maybe it was kind of one of those things a little bit too, instead of like timelines crossing. But that is what I wrote down from when I was reading your story as to what my idea would be as to, you know, why was he watching you? But now, again, like I talked about earlier, as I'm reading your story, I feel like sometimes the souls will step forward a little bit better. And that is my new answer. I think he just was there and he saw you. Sorry. I know that freaks people out sometimes, but it happens. And again, when I say I see people, like when I walked into the hotel with Amanda, I don't physically see them like I'm seeing you or me. It's more like I understand where they are in space and time, like proprioception wise. And then in my mind, I see an image of them, because seeing someone physically would be terrifying to me. All right, moving on. Our last story is actually two stories, both by Joey. And the title of Joey's stories is My Empathic Ability and the Time I Saw an Angel. So Joey says, hello, my name is Joey. This story takes place when I was 5, turning 6 years old. Ever since I gained a perspective on reality and was able to remember things, I always saw and felt things that weren't normal. I always thought it was something that people had and never really talked about. When I read that sentence, Joey, I always thought it was something that people had and never talked about. My mother told me these same exact things. When she was little, she used to see people all the time too. And aside from instances when she was little where her grandmother would take her to like Roman Catholic priests that would be like, do not talk to the dead people. That is not cool. She just grew up and thought that when people talked about loved ones and things like that, that they all got information and sort of saw or perceived that person standing there. And later on, my mom just realized that that is not how most people work. She's like, I just thought everyone kind of did that. No one ever said anything anyways. So I just, hopefully that makes you feel not alone in your statement, Joey. Continuing on, Joey says, my parents and brother and I used to live in an apartment. I remember one night, it was around 1:30 a.m. and my brother and I were sleeping. I had my covers over my shoulder and I was trying to sleep. I kept staring at my closet door. I took the blanket off me for a bit and I closed my eyes. My closet door was wide open. I saw this and I covered myself and kept staring at the door. It slowly closed on its own. I uncovered myself and kept one eye staring at the closet door again, and it slowly started to open. Whatever was doing it felt like it was playing a game with me. What scared me even more was when my brother woke up. He stood against the gate to his crib and stared at me. He then turned around and looked at the closet and started screaming bloody murder. I was just sitting in my bed in shock, trying to process everything that had just happened so I could explain it to my parents. I soon told them once everyone calmed down. They looked at me and didn't know what to say. They just told me that everything was going to be fine and I could sleep in their room that night. To this day, I still don't know what that was. Dude, let me tell you, I don't know what that was either. When you said that you looked at the door and then you saw that it started to slowly open, I was like, okay, maybe it's like one of your spirit guides, like telling you like, oh, hey, we're just hanging out with you. It's no big deal, yada, yada, yada. Because when I was reading this, I don't get like a scary feeling from whatever it is that you are talking about, Joey. I feel like it's playful. I feel like it could be mischievous, but not in a bad way, more in like a happy, like silly sort of way. So it's almost like you perceived that there was energy there, but you couldn't see it, which is fine. But the energy that you were perceiving, I don't think was bad. I don't think it was negative. I don't think it was whatever. However, the fact that your little brother saw it and then just screamed bloody murder, I don't want to say it's funny to me, but I do want to say it's funny to me. So just, you say that you were 5 or 6 when this happened and your brother was obviously a baby because he was in his crib. You do not have to think or know or feel that you have psychic or mediumship capabilities when someone is that young. Children and animals usually are more innately attuned to the metaphysical or spiritual around them because they don't have egos. So if there's like children that are babbling and talking about stuff that seems like a grandmother or a lost loved one, then that can be valid because they're just more able to not have the mental blocks set up in place that come with age and like your sociocultural perceptions of the world around you that inhibit your ability to perceive and channel metaphysical or spiritual information. So I just, like, there's been a couple times where my son has perceived things, I think, more visually that I just perceive very much like you, Joey, just more energetically, and it freaks me out. But that's not to say that he's a psychic or a medium. He's just a baby. So it's just, it is what it is. It's normal. It's par for the course, if you will. However, as to what it could be that was closing the door, I don't know if it was a spirit guide of yours or if it was just some silly sort of like energetic entity that was playing with you, if that makes any sense. Like, what is it? In the Bible, right? They talk about how, because I'm thinking about to the podcast in the video that was done on angels, right? I guess angels in the biblical sense are supposed to be like 8 bazillion eyes spinning giant scary monster type of thing. And I have perceived some people's spirit guides as like not favorably looking, if you will. So I'm just saying that just because something looks scary to your little brother doesn't mean that it necessarily is scary. It could have just shown themselves to your little brother as something that would have made him scream and cry because it was scary. But in all reality, they may have not been like a negative or bad energy. That's basically what I want to say. I don't know what it is because I'm not seeing it either. However, I don't think it was bad. And I think even if it was something that was quote unquote silly or funny, just because your brother screamed doesn't mean that it was a bad thing. It just maybe means that it was scary to him. So anyways, all right, Joey, I hope that explains your first story. Let's move on to your second story. Joey says, second story, A fact about me, I have Crohn's disease. I had a flare-up happen to me that was pretty bad, so much so that I had to be hospitalized for a couple of weeks so that the doctors could figure out how to help me. I think I was 7 or 8 at the time. I had a colonoscopy done. Afterwards, the doctors showed my screening to my parents and my insides were completely yellow. I was anemic and close to dying. My doctors rushed to find something that would work for me. Past medications I've had worked, but only for a short time. A few days after my colonoscopy, I was given a new medication. They gave me a small tablet before bed and then let me rest in the hospital. My mom slept next to me in an uncomfortable lounge chair, and my dad was working all day and night shifts to afford our hospital bills. It was around 11:30 p.m. and I started to fall asleep. I don't remember falling asleep really because I still felt like I was awake. I remember running in this grass field and there was this hill. There was a huge tree and I saw a white old classic car at the top parked next to the tree. I ran up the hill and saw a man sitting under the tree. He stood up and came up to me. He was tall, had tan skin, brown eyes, and long brown hair, and he wore a white suit as well. Okay, for everyone that's listening, pause this and let me know. Because, one of the things about this podcast is to understand and help you, not this podcast, but, this channel, this business in general is to help you understand and develop whatever your psychic abilities or spiritual capabilities. So pause this and let me know who you think is about to talk to Joey, because it's not at all what I thought. And the ending actually surprises me, and it makes me really happy. I love it. But you pause, tell me what you think your spiritual spidey senses think could be the person about to talk to Joey in his hospital dream, and then unpause it and come back. All right, so Joey continues. He held his hand out to me, and I put my hand on his. He guided me to the tree and sat me down. He didn't speak to me. We just sat down together and watched the sun set under the tree. Pretty soon I got tired and laid my head on the man's shoulder. He said only one thing to me before I woke up. Everything will be all right, son. I woke up in my hospital bed, coiled in my IV and drenched in sweat. My mom came by my side and told me it was time for my next colonoscopy. They took me to the room where they did the last one and put me under. My mom and dad saw everything. After the colonoscopy was done, they told my parents that I would be ready to go home by tomorrow. I was confused as to why. My mom was so happy and my dad hugged me. I asked what happened. They said that the new medication worked for me and my normal color was returning. We went back to my room and we started to get everything ready to go back home. My dad left my room for a second and I told my mom about the dream I had had. I told her what the man had looked like and she just stared at me and smiled. My mom for the rest of the day was pretty silent. Around 8 p.m., my doctor came in to let us know that we could go home now if we wanted to. We got all of our stuff and went to the car and drove back home to our apartment. After 3 hours of being stuck in horrible LA traffic, we finally made it home at 11:30. I was walking to my room ready to hop in bed when my mom told me to come to her room for a minute. She handed me a picture. I rubbed my eyes to get a clearer look. My mom asked if this man in the picture was the man I saw in my dream. I said yes. He was tall, had long brown hair, tan skin, and wore a white suit. There was even an old classic white car in the picture. The man I saw in my dream and in that picture was my grandfather. He died in 1975, 8 months after my mother was born. He was only 19. It was a tragic accident to how he died, but Stephen is what they called him, and he saved my life, basically. That's my experience. Joey. Right? Joey. I was not expecting that. When you said in the title of your story, the time I saw an angel or whatever it was that you put at the top, I was like, okay, this is going to be like Jesus, right? Tan skin, brown hair, white suit. Those are all of the God Almighty, movies that you've seen, things like that. So I was like, okay, so he's actually seeing an angel, or this is Jesus, someone's Jesus story, right? And then you tell me it's your grandfather, Stephen? I love that. That, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, okay, it's an angel. It's Jesus. This is someone's story. How freaking cool is that? And then it's actually your grandfather. And he's dressed to the nines with his white vintage car. I just love that. It makes me happy. And it wasn't what I thought when I was reading it. And I just wanted to tell you all that it wasn't what I thought. And I really liked the twist at the end to me. I mean, okay, if you guys paused it, did you guys, let me know in the comments below if you're listening on YouTube or if you want to leave a comment on the podcast, who guessed that it was a family member or like a grandfather? If you did, freaking kudos to you, because that was not at all what I was thinking. Not at all. So I don't know. I thought that was a really cool story. And I don't know, Joey, when it comes to, well, let's call him an angel. I don't care. I don't want to be the person that's just like, sometimes it's, when it comes to spiritual stuff, I'm getting, how do I explain this? I'm getting tired of trying to put everything in a box. I feel like Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove. We're going to put that in a box and then put that box in a box and then put that box in a box and a box in a box and then smash it. And I'm just more at like the smashing it sort of stage right now. So why not? Why can't Steven be an angel? I feel like he would be a guardian angel for you for sure. And I think he was there. His soul was given the opportunity to tell you that everything was going to be all right. And it was probably very necessary for you to tell your mom what you did too, so that she also knew like you were being guided and protected by your past loved ones, spirit, heaven, God, whatever it was. That's all like unique to you. But I think it was important that your mom got that information, hence why your guardian angel in that sense or in that situation, Joey, was Steven, your grandfather. I think it's very beautiful. And it makes me happy. I love stories like that. I'm a big old freaking sap about things. But anyways, thank you all for listening to this Sunday's podcast. And I'm excited for next week's. I think I want to do a podcast on Hecate. That's kind of what I wanted to do to start the new year. However, that wasn't going to happen because Hecate is just like an idol goddess icon, if you will, of this sort of time, but she's also been an idol and of a goddess since the beginning of time, and I'm trying to figure out how to differentiate between Hecate of the common times, the now, versus Hecate of who she was or who she could have been in her past. Like her origin story separated from her ideology now, if you will. So that will be something that we're going to talk about in the future. I'm trying to find the correct resources to find the best information. Anywho, thank you all so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this Sunday's podcast, and next week's podcast will hopefully be about Hecate, but I'm not making promises. We'll see what the future holds. Thank you all, and Happy New Year. Peace.